we're starting with quarterbacks. I got 2 quarterback sleepers for you today. The first being J.J. McCarthy. And I know you just mentioned Jaden Daniels, so I will just preface this by Drake May is my Jaden Daniels of this year. I don't know if he'll hit at that level, but I don't necessarily qualify him as a sleeper. He's going 110 to 120, so I wanted to dig a little deeper. But for any of you out there in some leagues where quarterbacks really do fall, I do prefer Drake May to J.J. McCarthy. I want that to be clear from the jump, but I also really do love McCarthy. We talked about this a bit with Jefferson last time, but under Kevin O'Connell, who I think is one of the best offensive minds in football, the Vikings have had the 3rd, 4th, and 18th most pass attempts, the 2nd, 1st, and 6th most yards. So even when they had the 18th most attempts, 6th most yards because of how efficient they were, the 4th, 4th, and 5th most touchdowns in passing for those 3 seasons, and then the 3rd, 6th, and 5th most passing fantasy points. They've always been top 10 in quarterback points per game in fantasy, even while rotating Nick Mullins, Josh Dobbs, just a collection of nobodies through that season. Jared Hall started games that year, and they were still collectively they were the quarterback 6 in fantasy points per game. Darnold was the quarterback 9 in points per game last year. And there were some bad injuries to his offensive line. They started to crumble late, and ultimately Darnold still had a very, very solid season. He went for 35 touchdowns and 4,300 passing yards. And J.J. McCarthy, if all things, he's not a guarantee to outplay Darnold, but he has a better arm. He's got championship pedigree, winning that national title. And the camp results so far are a little bit mixed. They've been up and down so far. Some days he looks like the next Pat Mahomes, according to reporters. Others days he's making a mind-numbing interception that really gets everybody wondering, is this truly going to be the guy? So it is far from a lock, but in terms of the system, you couldn't have better with Kevin O'Connell. You don't need me to spell out the weaponry, but just to remind you, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, probably a top 5 duo. You also have TJ Hawkinson added to the mix, and Aaron Jones, very explosive pass catcher, plus Jordan Mason stabilizing the run game. And what's I think going overlooked too by a lot of people is how much they revamped this offensive line, adding Ryan Kelly in the offseason, making sure to draft high capital in the position. And they've jumped from the 18th last year to all the way to the 11th. And I honestly think PFF is underselling them, and that's the rankings I'm referring to there. So between a much better line, great weaponry, a cannon arm, a great pass catching system, I love everything about J.J. McCarthy this year. I would not be shocked if he has, like, just a few years ago when Kirk Cousins was going 4,500 and like 40 touchdowns in this scheme. If he's everything that I think he could be, J.J. McCarthy has that upside. And there's a little bit of Konami. The one last piece of him is, we love that Konami rushing upside with our quarterbacks. He's not certainly going to confuse anybody for Jaden Daniels, but there are rumblings that they clocked him in. He didn't run the combine because he was hurt that year. I know you got to take this with a grain of salt. It's the Michigan coaching staff, but apparently ahead of camp where they time all their players, he ran a 4.48 in the 40, which is insane. Like, that would be faster than Jaden Daniels. I know, take it with a gigantic grain of salt, but he does. You saw it at Michigan when he can leak out. He's got some great speed down the scheme. You're not going to really design a ton for him, but when the pocket's collapsing and he needs to get upfield, you could have some of those sneaky 20-point rushing or rather 20-yard scrambles, and boom, another 2 points are added to your fantasy day. I think that goes a little bit overlooked with J.J. McCarthy. There actually is some rushing upside here?
Yeah, I actually, it's good that you're reminding me of what a sleeper is, because I saw McCarthy and I was just like, okay, so what we're looking for here, we're looking for an avenue where this guy could potentially really pay off if you take a stab at him. And that's written all over the guy, in my opinion. It reminds me of the Eagles quarterback situation back when Michael Vick came back. I remember I snagged him with the last pick in one of my drafts one time because I was just like, there is a world where this guy ends up running this team and scores 1 million points. And I can see that with J.J. McCarthy too. Absolutely.
Yeah, he'll never run as much as Michael Vick, no doubt about it. But but there is an avenue to throwing 4,500 yards and 40 touchdowns. There really is with J.J. McCarthy. Plus, you add 300 to 400 on the ground too. You're talking about a top 6 quarterback season, no doubt about it, if that happens. A lot of ifs, but yeah, you're talking last round pick that could end up blowing up. I really think J.J. is the best bet at quarterback this year.
Well, you got another quarterback on this list, and I'm wondering I'm just wondering your thoughts on him, because I get it, and at the same time, I want to roll my eyes.
I know. We alluded to this on our first round stream yesterday, where we both love Brian Thomas Jr., but there is a glaring question mark, and that is Trevor Lawrence, who's really done just so underwhelming throughout his entire NFL career so far. This is the final straw for me. And I've never really been a Trevor Lawrence guy. It's not like he's actually hurt me in fantasy because we've never really gone in on him. I've never liked what I saw from him. I always thought he was timid. I always thought he locked onto his first read too much. And just overall, he's soft. I don't love Trevor Lawrence, the player, from what I've seen so far. But I don't want to judge him on that Urban Meyer year. Doug Peterson got fired after a couple seasons. He's fine, but nothing special. What I really am intrigued by is this new hire of Liam Cohen, who we talked about yesterday with Brian Thomas, moves his receivers all over the place, gives layup opportunities to both his receivers and his quarterbacks. A lot of the hype this year is Trevor Lawrence could be this year's Baker Mayfield, and a big part of that is Liam Cohen was the guy that squeezed out a top 3 quarterback season out of Baker Mayfield last year. And that's where it's like, okay, I do believe in Baker Mayfield more than Trevor Lawrence. I always liked Baker more as a player, as a teammate. I thought he brings a lot more to the table. So I don't think it's a linear, just you can connect these dots and say this is exactly what happens. But there are a lot of traits with Trevor Lawrence that we saw with Baker Mayfield, in terms of Baker Mayfield had never been a top 15 quarterback until we saw Liam Cohen come, and he really helped squeeze it out. And the big thing is, again, we talk about the Konami upside, where they've already had Liam Cohen come in and say, let's get you used to using your legs a little bit more. Like, you can run. So much of what made us successful with Baker was his ability to run, to make plays. So that's what we've been working hard at with Trevor Lawrence. So boom, you already have that where he had Baker Mayfield set career highs in rushing, over almost 400 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground. Just adding that would be humongous for him. Plus, you have Brian Thomas, Travis Hunter, who I truly believe is the best receiver of this rookie class and will make insane plays all over the field. You got great weaponry. You got more Konami upside. It is just a matter of, and a perfect play caller in Liam Cohen. It is a matter of, does Trevor Lawrence actually have it? Well, at one point, he was considered the best quarterback prospect since Peyton Manning. There are plays where you're watching it and he throws it and it floats off his hand and it lands right in the breadbasket. Wow, where is this Trevor Lawrence every single Sunday? You have those spike weeks where he's had 30-point days. He's had 25-point weeks. It's a matter of, can it all come together with this type of weaponry, with this type of play caller? I'm still on the fence. I do prefer J.J. McCarthy as a sleeper, but if it does all come together, and you're asking a lot of things to come together, but if it does, Trevor Lawrence really could be a top 7 quarterback in fantasy. So I love him as a quarterback 2 stash, that you see what happens, especially if you wait on the position. Let's say you really do punt and you just go J.J. and Trevor Lawrence. Maybe you're playing matchups all year and they both hit. You can find out what happens there. I do think, though, there's a little bit of untapped upside, and I think Liam Cohen and these weapons are going to really just tap right into it and potentially turn around Trevor Lawrence's career.
I mean, I agree with you. There's untapped upside. I think it'd be impossible to argue with that. I mean, the expectations for him coming out of college could not have been higher.
Right.
They couldn't. And he did get a raw deal with some pretty, especially the Urban Meyer era, some absolutely terrible coaching partnerships. But I mean, every now and then he'll throw one of these balls or he'll make a play and everyone's like, see, this, and then you just don't get it often enough. Right. I agree with you. And honestly, if I need a quarterback and I got to pick in the last round of the draft, I could totally see taking a stab on this guy. It's just I could never invest anything real in him because I just don't believe it. There's a Kyle Pitts stink on him. It's kind of like that for me.
I fully agree with you, too. And that's why I can't enter the season with Trevor Lawrence as my only or my number one quarterback. Like he could be my backup guy that I then see if he pans out. I think he's going to go undrafted in a lot of leagues, like Baker last year, and then end up after like 2 big blow up weeks. The other thing too, I should have mentioned is that division is just ripe for like gross shootouts all the time. Like those defenses suck. All the offenses are kind of sneaky. If Cam Ward's good for the Titans, if CJ Stroud can rebound, I guess the Texans do have a decent defense, but it's still like it's not insane. And the Jags defense stinks, so they're going to need to be chasing points. I think the Colts defense is trash, and of course, the Titans defense is the worst in the league. So I think you could just get a lot of those like random division games that blow up for 70 total points, and Trevor Lawrence being a big part of those.
Yeah, agree. I'm looking forward to seeing how it pans out. And honestly, there's at least a small part of me that's kind of pulling for the guy, not because I really like him, but because I love BTJ so much. And I know that to some degree they're a package deal.
Exactly. That's true too. If I have BTJ all the way up at 9 after yesterday's ranking show,
Yeah.
I gotta have to have at least a little faith that Trevor Lawrence can be competent, if not and if he's really good, then boom, then Brian Thomas Jr. breaks fantasy. Travis Hunter's insane in his 6th or 7th round price, and that world exists. How likely does it hit? Maybe I said it at like 30%, 20% probably. Chance that Trevor Lawrence really does explode, but I really do believe in Liam Cohen. I know my boy Duck coming over from Kentucky, like he loves Liam Cohen as well. And I'm a huge believer. What really convinced me on him, truth, was like last year, Godwin gets hurt. Evans misses 3 weeks. The offense still was averaging like 28 points per game. And Cade Otton, do you remember that when like Cade Otton became like the best tight end in fantasy football? He just, whatever he has to work with, Liam Cohen makes it work. And he's got some real good stuff to work with here. The other big issue is the line, though. Like the Jags line could stink and Lawrence could just get crushed and get hurt like he often does. That is a worry. But there are the path, like it's one of those things where it's like you like to call it either a small miss or a huge win. Like if you miss, whatever, you brick on your.
It's not a big deal.
But if it hits, like it could hit humongous with Trevor Lawrence. And we'll talk about another Jag in a little bit. I just think this team really has a lot of untapped upside.
Agreed. And I think, he's an example, and there's a ton of examples of guys like this, I think, in the league right now, quarterbacks that could just absolutely blow up and have gigantic numbers. And so just, I'm pivoting a tiny bit from what we're talking about right now because of that, because there's such a deep well of quarterbacks that could potentially put up big numbers. You would advocate holding off on snagging one, right?
Yeah, that's one of and that's a great point. And I talk about that in the guide a lot. As much as I love Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and last year I was all about getting the onesies because those guys were falling to mid-round 3. You could secure your bell cow. You could get an elite target hog. Those guys are now going in the top 20 or so picks. And as much as I love them, you're not going to ever regret having those guys on your team. There are about 16 to 17 quarterbacks where I'm like, okay, I could go into the season. And that does not include Trevor Lawrence or JJ McCarthy.
Right,
those are
exactly.
Like 18 and 19. These are quarterback twos. So there's like 17 guys above them that I'm like, okay, yeah, I can go into my season and be happy with these guys as my quarterbacks. So yeah, especially this year, that is a change in this year's strategy and guide that I talked about, where I am much more, I always was a wait on quarterback guy for our first 5 or 6 years doing this. Then you got these unicorns, and now Jaden Daniels can be added to that list, that are just becoming such cheat codes. But you can still pluck a few of those, whether it's Drake May, Justin Fields. Again, guys that I like over both these guys we talked about. I just wouldn't qualify them as sleepers. They go a little too early. There are still a few unicorns out there. Plus, there's a great section. I always reference Ryan Heath over at Fantasy Points. He's one of the best up-and-coming minds between either a Konami upside or what he calls the McShanny quarterbacks, which are quarterbacks that are coming either from exactly McVay or Shanahan, where you have Purdy and Stafford, or people that are branches from their tree. And Liam Cohen is from the McVay tree there. And so ultimately, those guys have been the cheat codes, whether you find rushing upside or whether you just draft a McShanny quarterback. Well, both J.J. McCarthy and Trevor Lawrence are new quarterbacks. What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments, check out some more videos, and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.